Greetings and welcome back to this next installment of Bible Topics that make you say, hmm. And I'm Robin Sweet Ransom, and I'm glad that you chose to join me today. So, what have I got in store for you today? I'm glad you asked. So, stand up to bullying. Sometimes we think that bullying happens only when we're children. Look at her, stop bullying. Look like they want to stuff him into the locker here. But workplace bullying happens as well. I was contracted to work for a client in which I was hired to address the bullying that was going on in their workplace. I flew way on up to Alaska to deliver the training. Workplace bullying. Every worker has the right to a workplace free of bullying and harassment. Are you dealing with bullying as an adult? Is your child dealing with bullying? Are you the child watching this video who's dealing with it? Bullying is painful, whether it's cyberbullying, whether it's in person, it all needs to be addressed though. I want you all to go to the video that I did on In the Lion's Den about Daniel, because it was from that story that we're going to focus on bullying, because Daniel went through a situation as well. So I put a link in the description box for you to check that out. But let's get into it. Daniel chapter 6. Oftentimes people don't think about bullying, workplace bullying, when you think of Daniel being in the lion's den. But you know me, I love to unpack things in a way that may be unique. So it says Daniel distinguished himself above the administrators and satraps because he had an extraordinary spirit. So the king planned to set him over the whole realm. The administrators and satraps therefore kept trying to find a charge against him regarding the kingdom. But they could find no charge or corruption, for he was trustworthy, and no negligence or corruption was found in him. Then these men said, "We will never find any charge against this Daniel unless we find something against him concerning the law of his God." They were bullying him. They were trying to catch him slipping, as it were. They didn't like him. They were jealous of him. He was going to be their boss. And so they tried to do things to make life difficult for him. Isn't that what bullies do? Even in the workplace, verse 7 says, all the administrators of the kingdom, the prefects, the satraps, the advisors, and governors, everybody have agreed that the king should establish an ordinance and enforce an edict that for 30 days, anyone who petitions any god or man except you, the king, will be thrown into the lion's den. Now, the only reason why they came up with this ordinance that they wanted the king to sign off on was not because they wanted worship only to go to the king. It was because they knew that Daniel was not going to comply. And they would finally be able to not only get Daniel fired, but get Daniel killed. Is there someone in your workplace, someone in your school place that's either threatening you with physical harm or financial harm? Maybe they're trying to get you fired. Well, let's continue. Verse 8 says, therefore, your majesty, establish the edict and sign the document so that as a law of the Medes and Persians, it is irrevocable and cannot be changed. So King Darius signed the document. When Daniel learned that the document had been signed, he went into his house. The windows in its upper room opened towards Jerusalem. And 3 times a day, he got down on his knees, prayed, and gave thanks to God, just as he had done before. Daniel stood up to those bullies. He did not let the trap that they set for him cause him to do anything differently. Maybe you're in a situation where you're doing everything right, and it's because you're doing everything right that everybody seems to be rising up against you. The bullies are rising up against you. The only way to deal with the bully is to stand up to them. Don't let them change your nature or your character. Stand up to them. Now, Daniel stood up by continuing to do what he always did. He wasn't going to back down. It came at a cost to him, though. So you standing up to the bullies may come at a cost to you initially. Let's go to verse 11. It says, then these men went as a group and found Daniel petitioning and imploring his God. So they approached the king and asked about his edict. Didn't you sign an edict that for 30 days, any man who petitions any god or man except you, the king, will be thrown into the lion's den? The king said, yeah, I did that. And so he wanted to change it, but he couldn't change it. The law was that once he signed off on it, put his signet ring on it, it could not be changed. But he was trying to find a way to help Daniel and couldn't. Verse 19 says, at the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. He couldn't even sleep that night. And when he reached the den, he cried out in anguish to Daniel and said, Daniel, servant of the living God. The king said, has your God whom you serve continually been able to rescue you from the lions? He was hoping he would hear Daniel's voice back to him. Then Daniel spoke with the king. May the king live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths. They haven't hurt me, for I was found innocent before him. Also, I have not committed a crime against you, my king. So he stood up to the bullies, even at risk to himself, his life. Can you imagine facing hungry lions? And we see the outcome. God saved him. God will save you too. And you may see this happen. Verse 24, the king gave the command, and those men who had maliciously accused Daniel were brought and thrown into the lion's den themselves. Not just them, but they, their children, and their wives. That's a lot of people that those lions had to eat, because it's a bunch of people that came up against Daniel. And it says they had not reached the bottom of the den before the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones. So we see the outcome that God gave in this situation. Not only did he spare Daniel for his faithfulness and continuing to worship only him, he could have stopped him from being thrown into the den, but he allowed him to be thrown into the den. And that was even bringing more glory to himself and showing even more how special Daniel was, that the king was able to see. He was already going to make him ruler over everybody. Now this confirmed it for him. Daniel is special. And then he got those good for nothing people and he killed them, even their innocent family. So what situation are you facing today? Well, whoever your bullies are, whether it's the government, whoever it is, you can stand up to them. And guess what? The Lord will take care of you, because Daniel stood up against the government. And we see the outcome God gave. Daniel had courage to stand up to bullies and violence that was coming at him. Who are your bullies? Whoever they are, rest assured that with God's help, you can overcome the bullying. And here's some practical things that you can do. You can speak up for yourself. Refuse to cower to them. You can remain calm and firm in your stance. And you may try to reason with the bully. Seek support. Seek the Lord. And you may need to report the bullying, whether you're in school or in the workspace. Maybe legally you need to address the issue, especially if you're dealing with the government. But whatever you do, trust God and he will give you the courage to stand up. Bullies don't go away because you cower. They keep coming back and bothering you more. I had to deal with a bully once in my life that I was cowering against. I did not want to fight her. I was scared of her. And my mother said, oh, no, you're going to fight this bully. And so she went and got that girl out of her house. She said, you want to fight my daughter? Well, today is the day. And we fought, and I kicked that girl's behind because I was scared. I stood up to her because my mama said, you either fight her or you're going to fight me. Maybe you all were raised with a mom like that. And later, me and her became really good friends, right? So you have to stand up to bullies. You just do. And you may get this outcome. Hebrews 1:13 says, be seated. God will make your enemies your footstool or your pillow, as he did for Daniel. No to bullying both in the office or at school, and recognize that ultimately Christ will help you survive and thrive your bully situation. Psalm 91:11 says he will give his angels orders concerning you to protect you in all your ways. It says here, we want to rely on the Lion of Judah. It says, do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has triumphed. Trust God with your situation. You do not have to cower in fear. God can give you the courage you need to be courageous as a roaring lion. And if you don't know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, have the courage to accept him today. Romans 10:9 and 13 says, if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For everyone who calls upon the name of the Lord will be saved. Accept his invitation today, because tomorrow is not promised. All right, join me next time on Bible Topics That Make You Say,